So I'm going to start off by asking a few questions about your preparation to play Zula. I mentioned before the film that this is loosely based on the parents of Pawel Pawlikowski. The real Victor and Zula, they died in 1989, before the Berlin Wall fell. And the other real context of this movie is the Mazowsze folk troupe in Poland. The dance troupe that your character is part of is based on a real Mazowsze group, which is still functioning today. So how did you prepare to play Zula, not only in terms of dancing like the Mazowsze, but in terms of trying to understand Pawel's mother and father?
It was a long process and long story, and we knew that Zula was, you know, Pawel's mother and Victor's father, but of course we didn't ask a lot about this relationship. I saw her photo. She was blonde, you know, small, and she was a dancer and learned English or something like. She didn't sing, only dancing. But when we were sitting and when we talked about this couple, sometimes Pawel said something about parents, but generally it was like, because this relationship was very difficult and Pawel wanted to use this kind of mechanisms of this relationship, like they were together, they were separated, once again together, but generally he created a script, like there is the same names, but the story is, you know,
it's fictionalized.
It's fictionalized, and we didn't talk a lot. We tried to be concentrated with Tomasz Kot about build, you know, this.
Tomasz Kot is the actor who plays Victor.
Yes.
And he also does a wonderful job, but I think we are particularly impressed with you. When I first saw the film and first met you, this was at the Transatlantic Festival in Lodz, in Łódź, Poland.
And we talk in Polish.
We did.
She speaks very well Polish.
Yeah, I know a little bit.
Yes, that's why I feel more comfortable here.
You mentioned that something about how the very construction of the group, the folk music group, was like an organism that was like communism, because it, like a security thing, that it made the people feel like they had a kind of family, a kind of community. And that was something that...
In Mazowsze,
yes.
You think about for me it was, because it was very similar like in a film, like they decided to build Mazowsze just before the communism. But when the communists will come, they use propaganda, and that's why, like, we love folk music, but because of the communists, people when they hear Mazowsze, they said, oh, it was something like, oh, this communism and the propaganda. But generally, the idea was, you know, very, very great. Like they use folk melodies with, you know, with the classic arrangement, like Sygetyński did very nice things with melodies. That's why it sounds, and Pawel chooses, of course, the best songs from Mazowsze.
Now, I'm not familiar enough. Are the songs that you sing like Serce, Hearts, and Serce, right,
yes,
that one, and Two Eyes, are these famous songs that you already knew before the film?
Yeah, I knew, but Pawel wanted to use, because it was the Russian musical, yes, and he thought it will be, you know, great to use this, you know, very funny, like Zula will come and will sing something about Serce, yeah, and they were so interested in, what is this? This is the, you know, folk casting, and she sings Serce, it sounds fun that Zula is, you know, not exactly, you know, great about folk music, but Zula has something in her character, and that's why they, oh, maybe she will be great with
no, actually, the introduction of your character is so wonderful, because one gets the sense that you're kind of checking out everything.
Yeah.
How can I become,
yes,
you
yes.
know, important?
And you know, like, because the first idea was, during the casting, Zula was alone, but later Pawel said, maybe we'll do like, it's more, you know, great for Zula characters, like she's alone and she tried to talk with, you know, another girl. Okay, come with me and we will use some folk for 2 voices, and it's good, you know, exposition for the first, you know, casting for Zula.
Good. And one gets the feeling too, one of my favorite scenes at the beginning is when they say, oh, she killed her father, and actually Irena, the tough woman with the cigarettes who played the aunt in Ida, she says, you know, she's from Tomaszova, which is, of course, the very place that is the heart of the song that you sing in Woman in the Fifth.
Yes.
That's what we heard at the end. For those of you who may not know it, it's a very, very famous poem, first of all, by the Polish-Jewish writer Julian Tuwim. And it was made into this very popular song in Poland called Tomaszova, which you get to sing throughout Woman in the Fifth.
Yeah, but you're so, you know, proper, because I didn't think about this. And yes, and it's true, like, Zula was from Tomaszów. Yeah, Pawel used Tomaszów during the Women in the Fifth, the Wademarczyk. It's a lot of Polish connections.
Yeah, intertextual. Some of my students from Columbia are here tonight, so they know I'm always looking for that kind of relationship among films as well as within films. Tell me, were there other inspirations of female performers or characters that you were thinking of in creating Zula?
Very often I used Lauren Bacall, because, you know, I am very, how to say, I use a lot of energy on the set and everywhere, you know, I'm a chaotic person and, you know, talk a lot, and Pawel decided to, when I was too strong, said, Joanna, please go to your hotel and check Lauren Bacall. It was always YouTube before the sleeping, and I was watching Lauren Bacall. And when I was too strong on the set, Pawel, Lauren Bacall, okay. And I don't know, it worked. I was like, and I was, you know.
It made you kind of
chill. Yes.
Lauren Bacall.
Lauren Bacall was the one inspiration. And about the couple was Marilyn Monroe and Arthur Miller, because they were beautiful. Arthur Miller was, you know, like, you know, more smart, intellectual. Marilyn was, you know, she didn't believe for herself. She was so sweet, talented, but she had problem with, you know, psychological things. That's why I think they were similar than Victor and Zula, with something, you know.
And actually, now that you mention it, there is a moment when you're singing in the French nightclub where there's even a physical resemblance to the Marilyn Monroe of that era, of the 50s, with the very blonde hair, the black dress, and something vulnerable as well as strong.
Yeah. I remember the scenes. We repeated, I don't know, 25 times, because it was problem with one hair. They all the time checking, because the light was so shiny, and all the time, no.
Wait, you had to do 25 takes?
Yes.
Okay, the reason that I find that remarkable is that I noticed how the camera is the entire, when you're singing the song in the nightclub, L'Eclipse, it circles you completely. That's a very long take.
It was a very long take.
So to have to do that so many times.
Yeah, we generally do 20, 25 times. And one scene, which, very simple scene, do you remember, like I sing something like la 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 la, na na na. Repeat it 40 times. And I remember we came back to the hotel, and Pawel was upstairs and Tomasz Kot was downstairs. And Tomasz Kot said, Joanna, I was laying on the bed and Pawel switched off the scenes, and I was hear something like this. I said, no, stop. And for the next day, Pawel said, we have to repeat it. Your dress was, no, we have to change color, but it was the black and white, you know.
Okay.
That's why they decided to use different costume, and once again, 30 times. And my voice was completely destroyed after this scene. Like, it was like, yeah, and...
Well,
yeah, but this is this kind of method, like Pawel work.
Well, okay, and maybe this is one of the reasons that at the Cannes Film Festival, Pawel Pawlikowski was named Best Director for this film. And certainly Ida was another example of what a meticulous perfectionist he is. Now, on the one hand, I think some of you tonight might have been aware not only of the greatness of the performance by Joanna Kulig, but, for example, that it's in black and white like Ida, that it's a square frame, very rigorous, boxy frame, that sometimes the camera seems curiously to have the characters here in a lot of space on top of the frame, almost making you aware of how, well, this is a line from my husband Mark when we watched Ida, how far the characters are from heaven, the sense that there's all this space between the top and these earthbound creatures. But at the same time, what an amazing director of actors. So I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about how Pawel brought out the best in you. I mean, was there a lot of rehearsal, for example?
It was a lot of rehearsal, but we didn't act a lot. It was more about talking about the script, changes, dialogues, and Pawel told us, please cancel all of your projects. That we were very concentrated only about this story, about Pawel, about how to build the relationship between me and Tomasz. And sometimes it was like in the theater just a little bit, because very often this is reading rehearsal. When you talk, go to home, sleep, wake up, you have different ideas, you can talk about this. And when we will start shoot, one day or 2 days before shooting, we are going to the location, like when the scenography was, and we did some small rehearsal. But it was strange because I remember that one scene we tried like that. I was laying on a bed, Tomasz Kot was sitting, we acted this, and another day we are on the set. Pawel said, no, you will be on the chair, like, and Tomasz was, on the bed. That's why it was like all crew, actors, costume designers, and were very ready for changes. It was all the time process, like, because we knew that maybe during the night Pawel would change something, and it was very often like that. And they, they had to change, the color of the walls yeah, that's why the producers were crazy, like they were, but they do, but we're so.
Okay, and was he open, though, to things that you brought? Because if he was, for example, changing things from day to day, could you?
Yeah, but could changes, of course, for be better and better. And the main structure, of course, it was prepared during it was in the script, all, important things.
And for how long did you shoot?
5 months, but not day by day, but different locations, different countries. That's why we had breaks during the 4, parts of shooting.
And was it more or less chronological?
It was more or less chronological. That's why it helped us.
Yeah, I can
especially
imagine.
Because I spent half year in Mazowsze, because I'm not a professional dancer and I did a lot of work, and it was much easier to start dance with Mazowsze at the beginning when Zula was young. It helps me a lot, this experience, be there.
I just remembered something. I read that you had invoked another singer in the way that you were preparing your part, Amy Winehouse? Is that true?
But Amy Winehouse, it was not about... I remember her scenes with Tony Bennett in the studio. Like, she was completely drunk, and, she was so talented, and she had a lot of problems with, believing for herself. That's why it was something similar from Zula too, and we have some scenes in the studio and she's so tired and she's so talented, but she's quite like a child sometimes.
Right.
And I think Emmy was very talented, but she was, you know, like child too.
Yeah. There was a wonderful documentary about this
Yeah,
British singer who has unfortunately since died about 2 years ago.
Yeah, I saw, and it's great sentence in this document, like, Emmy wanted only be, you know, silence and have a, you know, happy life. That's why.
Was the singing done live? In other words, were we actually watching you singing in each of these cases?
Yeah, and I use, yes, this is my voice, and we did in the studio all songs, and on the set we used this. But I sang with this, you know, soundtrack. Because
it struck me watching the film tonight for the second time that this is as much a musical, a jazz musical in some ways, as it is a love story, a drama made in post-war, about post-war Poland. And especially because you incarnate the shift in the Polish landscape through the songs you sing. So folk music at the beginning, an anthem to Stalin, and I love the shot where, you know, we see this huge flag of first Stalin's eyes that rises and then his mustache. And then it becomes the jazz that one would have heard in Paris in the 50s. Did you have to learn about the music scene in each case?
About folk, of course, because I was born in a small village, which is the folk tradition still exists during the communion weddings. That's why, you know, I have 2 brothers, 2 sisters. My mother has 6 sisters. You know, it's a huge family. That's why we will use this. That's why I knew how to use this voice. Mazowsze, they use folk sound, but they use bel canto too. And I studied, you know, some bel canto in Krakow during the secondary music school. That's why I knew how to use it. About jazz, I wanted to study jazz. They didn't want me. Yeah, that's why it was something like I thought, oh, I can use this, I can exercise. But yeah, I work with Ania Sarafińska, Polish, very famous jazz singer, and one from States, how to use this, you know, the sound more delicate and be, you know, more with this style. And Marcin Masecki helped us a lot because he did all of arrangement, jazz arrangement, and like Oberego Poczyński, Dwa Serduszka, and he did such a great work for this part of film. Okay. That's why the voice for me was like acting too, like use the voice, like how to act with this melodies, with this sound, and it was interesting for me how to use voice for playing.
Now, you said at the New York Film Festival about 10 days ago that you were planning to quit acting altogether about 8 years ago, and then you met Pawel.
Yeah.
And Pawel was apparently so impressed with Joanna Kulig that when he was making Woman in the Fifth, he wrote the part of Anya. It was not in the original script.
Yeah.
He created this Polish waitress just to give her a role. Would you say that Pawel sort of changed your life? Had that not happened?
Because it was a huge crisis for me. Because, like I said, I never dreamed about being an actress. I wanted to study music, maybe conducting. Nobody wants me. Yeah, in Krakow, it was acting with singing. I decided to go. It was cool because it was difficult to be there. But when I started to study acting, for me it was like, I don't know how to say, but it was strange. Sometimes I feel like, oh my God, where I am. People all the time, you know, they speak loud, they shout, they are crying. And for me it was like a new situation. And I didn't feel well. Yeah, but step by step, I started like, maybe it's something for me. I won casting to my first film, and I get award from debut. That's why they started to...
yeah, the award for best debut actress.
Yes. And they invited me to the National Theatre, to the casting. I won, and I started
the word casting actually, here it would be audition.
Yeah.
Because casting is...
Okay, audition. Okay.
Audition.
Thank you very much. And I did this, And when I started to play in National Theatre, everything was great, but after 1 year, I felt very exhausted because I didn't know how to use my, I don't know, I did, you know, 100% of all, you know, yeah, crying. I was like, it was chaos, you know, and I was exhausted, and I started to think, no, maybe this is not for me, because when I was on the stage, difficult parts, crying, feel, you know, like a lot of, you know, bad things in my head. I said, no, I don't want to be. I want to be happy. No, this is not for me. Finished. Yeah, and I finished, and Pawel Pawlikowski met with me. I said, oh, Johnny, you're nice. But he thought about Ida. Yeah, but he said, Joanna, you are too Slavic. We need some more Jewish. Okay, and I remember it was 4 or 5 months later. He wrote to me email, Joanna, I wrote something for you. It's the the 5th. Would you like to play with Ethan Hawke and Christine Scott Thomas in France? I said, why no? Maybe it was too radical decision, and I will start. And it was new beginning for me, because step by step, I understood that I can act, I can use music, I can have my private life, happy, yeah, and it's good to keep, you know, 3 separate things together, and you can be happy and you can be actor.
Yes, and not everyone can say that you can be happy and be an actor. It's sometimes a paradox. Because we showed the clips from Les Innocentes and Elles and Ida in addition to this, it seems that music is very important to the roles that
and from Pawel to Pawel.
And for Pawel as
love
well.
Actors which they have music.
So what kind of music were you listening to when you were growing up in Poland?
You know, I love Stevie Wonder.
Say,
Stevie Wonder.
Stevie Wonder.
You know, Earth, Wind and Fire with Houston. And of course, like Grzegorz Turnał, Polish, Marek Grechuta, Czesław Niemen. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know most of these composers, sorry to say. From Poland, I think I only know Krzysztof Komeda, who's a jazz musician who did the score for Roman Polanski's Knife in the Water and his subsequent films. But otherwise, I'm a bit ignorant about it. I'm curious whether for you or for Pawel, might some of the cinematic inspirations for this movie include Scorsese's New York, New York, or maybe even La La Land?
I like La La, yeah. And I think, like, before the shooting, Papa, I have to go to La La Land. And I saw La La Land, I said, oh, we have some Polish La La Land in here, like Pawel said. But I like La La Land. I saw 3 times.
Okay. I also thought of New York, New York, only because of again, the tension between 2 lovers, you know, who are performers, who are part of the music world. The Liza Minnelli character and the Robert De Niro character are not going to necessarily have a happy ending, although it's way happier than the ending here. But the idea of people who perform not being able to find the personal joy and peace, I mean, that seemed to be part of the thing. I wanted to tell you and everybody else that I sent an email to Ethan Hawke, who has been our Real Pieces guest 3 times already, inviting him tonight because I thought maybe he had not seen Cold War. And he sent me an email saying, I'm in Paris, and I'm so sorry that I can't be with you because I don't just consider Cold War to be one of the best films of the year. I had mentioned that in my email. He says, I think it's one of the greatest films of all time. And he proceeded to write about you these 2 sentences, which I feel I have to share with you and this audience. He said, Joanna is a powerhouse, spiritual and human, fierce and fragile, dangerous and vulnerable, intelligent and instinctual. It's a major performance, unquote. So I just thought we should share that with you and with them.
You know, I remember our first meeting because I was so scared because it was 7 or 8 years ago. I didn't speak English well. I started to learn French, but I knew some words, I said, okay, when I meet with Itang, I will start to talk with French with him. And I started, and he didn't know French, and it was like so sweet because we have to learn together, like French language. We had cars together, and he was so, you know, so smart and so great for me. Very, you know, like normal person. That's why. Thank you very much.
No,
Send to him email that.
I will let him know, of course. You've gotten to work with him, an American actor, and we saw a clip from Elles, E-L-L-E-S, the film with Juliette Binoche. I have to say that the scene that we showed, every time I see it, you and she were really eating the pasta.
Yes.
Really. And
yes.
I love this scene. In many movies, I get excited.
Yeah, I was so full, you know, like when they repeated, everybody said, it's a lot of pasta.
But that leads me to a question.
Yeah.
Because the director there is Małgorzata Szumowska, who for many of us is, along with Pawel Pawlikowski, perhaps the most interesting Polish filmmaker working today. You probably don't know her films all that well, but a year or two ago was Ciało, Body, and she has a new film called Mug, which I actually saw at the Jerusalem Film Festival, and I think it's going to be showing at BAM in the very near future. She has a much more kind of aggressive, I think,
yes,
poetic filmmaking style. And as I told the audience, this is a movie where Juliette Binoche plays a journalist writing about female sex workers, and you are one of the key objects of her attention. Could you compare the way that Szumowska, who's one of the really great directors today, do she and Pawlikowski have similar methods of working with you?
Completely different situation. No, it was like Małgorzata Szumowska is so strong, and when we were on the set, when everything is great, you play well, it's well. But if somebody, it's not well, she's so nervous and shout, and she's so, you know, strong. That's why it wasn't so easy. But Pawel is so calm on emotions and inside, Szumowska outside.
Okay. And actually, you can tell from watching a film like Cold War as well as Ida, there's a stillness. There's a sense of restraint in the storytelling as well as the personality.
When we were on the set with Pawel, with Tomasz Kot, we said, maybe we talk about what does it be being an actor? And we started thinking, maybe we are the medium of the directors, because sometimes you have to be, you know, in their heads, soul, and you have to play, but you have to play what they want, and you have to understand what they have here. That's why.
Well, you're absolutely right. I know there are some actors in the audience. So often when I teach films, it becomes apparent that a director is using the actor in the same way that he or she is using the score, the cinematography, the editing. It's one more element. It's a tool in what is very often a vision that uses the people to project sometimes the director's own fears and desires. And I guess if an actor can accept that and find a freedom within that, it can lead to work.
They can use this. They can keep bored, of course, because directors want all the time, you know, more and more and more. But you can find, you know, compromise between the vision and your private emotions, and you can work well.
And are there particular American filmmakers with whom you would really like to work now?
Woody Allen, of course.
Woody Allen. He's been on this stage a few times.
And we'll see. I'm open, you know.
I have a feeling that offers will come in at some point. And this is not the first time that you acted with Tomasz Kot, who plays Victor, because I gathered that in 2015 you made a film called Disco Polo, which was directed by your husband, Maciej Bochniak.
He's there,
He's actually in the audience with us. Oh, the reason he's in the audience with us is that tomorrow night at the Margaret Mead Film Festival at the Museum of Natural History, that will be the American premiere of his film, a documentary called Ethiopic Revolt of the Soul.
Yes,
did I get
about
that right?
Ethiopian jazz.
About the jazz funk movement that came out of Ethiopia in the 1960s and 70s. So did you have scenes with Tomasz Kot in that
Yes,
movie?
and I said, what's the couple? Tomasz, so tall, Joanna, so small. It was like a comedy or something. And Maciek created this couple, and later Pawel used this couple once again. That's why we can say that my husband created Tomasz Kot and Joanna Kulig couple.
He created
first,
a prototype for
yeah.
a couple in this film. That's great.
Yeah.
And this is also, if I understand correctly, the fourth time that you have worked with Agata Kulesza,
Yes.
the Aunt Wanda in Ida, because you were also,
TV
she was
series.
not only, I can't believe you've made this many films with her. In Les Innocentes, the French film about the nuns, she played the Mother Superior.
Yes.
And you were also in Puławka,
Yes,
the
TV series.
Polish film series. Do you already have a kind of shorthand of working with her, or?
Our first music was in Ida, of course, but we played in the theater too, Athenaeum in Warsaw. We were in the same group, and I like work with her, and and she helped me a lot. Sometimes, you know, when we have conversation on the phone, Agata helped me, Joanna, you have to know how to use your energy. When you work in the TV series, you have to keep your energy for longer, like not only from 10 days. Remember, you have 50 days. You have to be, you know, you have to be, and she's so smart. She's so smart and great, and she's my friend too.
Yeah, and she tends to play these rather hard women, like the chain smoker here and the aunt. It's a very particular type that she has cultivated, which is very different from what you do well.
But during the private life, she's so, you know, she dance, sing, she's so happy person, but they use her for a very deep, dark character.
Yeah, for the harder edge.
Yes.
And you have done a lot of work in theater in Poland.
In National Theatre in Krakow and in Warsaw, yeah.
And are you now balancing the film and TV on the one side and the...
Now I did more in cinema, and of course because Cold War, it's huge promotion. It's for the first time in my life, like I do the promotion not only in Poland. It means like that's why it was a lot of traveling to Germany, to England, France, now New York, after Los Angeles. That's why it's a lot of work about, you know, new situation in our life. But of course I'm pregnant, that's why I want to be concentrated about my private life. And later I will see what will be next.
I mean, this is what I call a very high-class problem, that an actor has a film that has been acclaimed in so many festivals and cities. It's opening, by the way, Cold War, December 21st. In New York and Los Angeles. It is the official entry from Poland for the Best Foreign Language Film Oscar, a prize that Pawel Pawlikowski won with Ida. So
and I did, you know, just after the Cold War, I did another film with Wojciech Smarzowski about Polish church in Poland.
Oh,
with
Claire?
Claire, yes. And with Koterski, and I finished 9th season of TV series. That's why I work very hard.
9 seasons of a TV series?
Yeah, that's why I did, you know, 4 years for me it was like hard work. That's why now I need, you know, time for relaxing.
And you also, if I remember correctly, did a film with one of my very first female guests in Real Pieces, because we've had so many talented male directors. That was Agnieszka Holland. This would have been about 22 years ago. Janosik,
yes,
which she co-directed, Agnieszka Holland, with her daughter. I just Katarzyna Adamik. And working with, she's probably the best known of the contemporary Polish filmmakers, and she's been at it since the 1980s. In terms of her style of working with you compared to Pawel and
Pawel.
It's more like Pawel.
It's more like Pawel, yes.
Okay.
He's strong, but very, you know, calm and, you know, sensitive.
Okay. I have more questions, but it's getting late, and I'm positive that there are some questions in the audience that we want to acknowledge. And I'll repeat.
Thank
Your work
you.
is amazing.
Thank you so much. I want to ask you about one moment in the film, one line that you give when at the end of the Paris story, when you say to him, "You're not a man anymore.
Right.
You're not as much of a man." I'm not quite sure exactly.
This is a question about, in the end of the Paris sequence, Zula says to Victor, you're not, in Poland you were a man, and here you're not.
What do you think she means by that?
What do you think she means
Yeah,
by
yeah.
that line?
She was just a little bit crazy, you know, and just a little bit like a child. And she wasn't like an adult person because it was the difficult situation in France, you know, like she was alone. What I tried to create it. Sometimes like a woman say something which is, it wasn't true, I think, because later she understood that the Victor was the most important person for her. But in this moment, it's the great idea. You are not the man. You use, you know, all frustrating things, and she was too crazy, and that's why it was later she understood that Victor was the real love, but it was too late. The women are like that sometimes, you know. They don't know what they talk, you know.
It's also, I think, because this is a film about exiles. And it just so happens that today in my class at Columbia, we were talking about the unbearable lightness of being, which is a film and a book that actually for me it has resonances with tonight's film. Finding one's place, especially if you are no longer in your own country, with your own language. The challenge of that, not only for the female character, but for Tomasz. And it's almost like she's hitting him where it hurts because they're both lost in their, you know.
Yeah, and one thing which Pawel told me, like, Victor in Poland was somebody conducting, he was strong, but in France, he started to do some strange thing, like during the party, like, oh, Zula sang from Stalin, and she didn't want to this kind of, you know, promo. And for her, it was like, oh my God, Victor is weak, why he used, but he tried to do it something well for her, of course.
Yeah. It seemed like a rejection of the melancholy of the music, of the jazz that he was having her sing.
Yeah, it's true.
But, you know, it's also true that one of my favorite shots in the movie is when Zula impulsively jumps into the water and you see her floating with only her head and
it was only 2 times. It was
once.
It was the only one day like that. I heard, oh my God, the water was cold. I said, okay, we will be repeated, you know, 10 times. I'm ready for that. But it was only 2 times and we
Thank goodness. But I mean, it reminded me of the film Jules and Jim, Truffaut's movie, where Jean Moreau's character, Catherine, impulsively, too, jumps into the Seine, into the river, just to shock both Jules and Jim, who she thinks aren't paying enough attention to her. You know, there is.
And I like this scene very.
It's
crazy.
Yeah.
It's like the Russians.
But it's also stunningly beautiful because we can't see exactly. We only see like little bits, her arms in the crucifix shape and her head, and the rest is submerged.
Yes.
She's floating and singing at the same time, and I'm going, wow, I have to like read the image.
Yes.
But it was magnificent.
Yeah, I was so concentrated that you know, song, be like that, don't shake and finish. And the light was well, probably like this, the sun was and the weather was great. That's why he said, it's good, we can finish. Yeah.
Okay. A question in the middle, yes, and then on the side.
Dobry wieczór, oh, super.
Good evening.
Really? You are from Krynica-Zdrój? Oh my God. Oh my God. Wonderful. It's so amazing situation.
The entire Polish community.
Oh my God. You know,
very proud.
You know, really small, nice town.
What do you think of when you sing? Whatever it is that gives you that extra level, that energy in the singing.
It's difficult to. I always sing, you know, and it means co używam.
I o czym myślisz?
O czym myślę, jak śpiewam? Okej. It's depend because in Cold War I tried to be Zula, and when I sang Dwa Serduszka, I tried to think about Victor and Zula, you know, relationship and about love. But when I sang, you know, some Mozart or Handel, I tried to think about, you know, lyrics and atmosphere. And sometimes when I didn't feel well, I go somewhere, think. Yeah, but it's difficult. I think it's something when I sing, I feel like in the heaven and I'm so, you know. Yeah.
Especially when you're singing Latin as a nun at the beginning of Les Innocents. There was a hand, I think, on the left, gentleman on the aisle, and then I'll come right back here.
Well, first of all, yeah, it was just a wonderful performance.
Thank you.
The movie is both about love, but it's also about this person who goes from nowhere, actually, who faces all of those obstacles on her way and overcomes this, both with who she is, with her emotions, with her voice, but also, I think, with just a little bit of a craziness.
Yes.
There's something that kind of helps her. But I want to go back to that scene in Paris, because it is not obvious whether she slept with this French guy.
Yeah,
Okay.
For me it was difficult too, yeah.
There's...
Roman Bradley has written Columbia, there is this book, where there is the same kind of a love story during the uprising in Warsaw, and there's this woman that brings to the guy guns or ammunition, and it turns out that she was actually trying to help him to survive, basically, by giving him weapons, and she was getting from other fighters that she was actually having sex with. He discovers this later on.
Okay, so just to make sure, the question has to do with whether Zula really did have sex with Michel, the French producer. Or was it to spite Victor? And was it true, actually, in your mind? Because obviously we're not going to ask an actor to explicate, but when in the way that you were conceiving of the scene, first of all, did you believe, was it true that Zula did sleep with the French?
Yeah, and there is only one sentence about her childhood at the beginning of the film. And what I try to use about the psychological process of Zula, I use this because I knew that sometimes it's like that your childhood can come back to you when you are adult, when you build your adult relationship with your love, or with your husband, with your, you know. And I knew that Zula had problems with herself. That's why he chose not good way for work with the crisis between her and Victor. It means like she decided to drink alcohol, go sleep with another, you know, men's, and for a short moment it was maybe help her, but generally it wasn't good for her, and it was she started to destroy herself, you know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a self-destructive element in Zula, despite her incredible attractiveness as a person. The gentleman here, yes?
Super.
I have a question. Can you talk a little bit about your process when you prepare for the role?
Yeah.
A little more to talk about the process of preparing for the role.
Like we talked, more or less was chronologically. That's why it was much easier for us. Like we knew that first step will be, you know, like the Mazurek part. That's why I spent half a year with real Mazowsze. That's why I knew how they work. I knew it's something like when you are in such a huge group, and you dance, you all the time feel, you know, happy, like you feel like with huge family. That's why I knew that it will be great for Zula, like, okay, Zula is, you know, with Mazurek, it will be like be in a huge family. That's why I was concentrated about dancing, singing, be happy. It was the first step. Zula was young. That's why I did this, and we will start shoot this part. That's why I try to don't think too much about, you know, another step like Zula in France, Zula with Victor. I knew, but I started to think, yeah, you have to be concentrated only with this part. Be happy, young, dancing, you know, and have young music energy. And we finish with this. And when we will start to do difficult and, you know, relationship between Victor and Zula, we talk a lot with Tomasz Kot on the set, and generally with Pawel about condition between relationships, how is it during, like the build couple, well couple is not so easy. That's why we talk a lot of about this. And when we were on the set, we try to be very concentrated what Pawel wants. And because when you repeat it, you know, 20, 25 times, it's not like you can fix something. You have to be very fresh, open, and very concentrated about, because Pawel don't like when actors play too much. It means you have, all emotions are here, but your face have to be very, you know, like nothing. And it's more about thinking than use, you know, mimic on, you know, like in the theater. It's not this kind of acting. And yeah, and that's it, I think.
Yes.
Two things. First of all, I think you were as good as, I can't remember the French actress's name in Edith Piaf, and I hope you have
This is as good as Marion Cotillard in the Edith Piaf film, La Vie en Rose.
the same success by getting an Oscar, but
And we hope you have the same success and get an Oscar.
I'm not going to go to sleep tonight unless I know
Thank you.
what you think the director's intentions were, that to get him out of prison, she obviously married the guy, had the child, she ignored, and then the ending.
Okay, so this...
Very, yeah, I wanted two different endings, but...
Okay, this was a very Eastern European ending. To talk, I mean, to get Victor out of prison, did that mean that Zula had to marry Kaczmarek, and then she has a child that she completely ignores?
Yeah.
And of course, the ending is...
For me, it was very difficult to play. Like, I said, Pawel, why I am so bad from this, you know, this small boy. She's the mother. No. Forgot. This is this. You choose Victor and don't think about it. This is not you. Okay. And I did this, yeah. But for me, it was so sad, you know, like, yeah, but...
And the ending,
Yeah.
I mean, that's not what happened with his parents sometimes.
The question is, the ending is presumably not exactly what happened with
Yeah.
Pawel's parents.
It was sad ending, but, you know.
I mean, we do not know, and I choose not to ever ask directors direct questions
Yeah.
like that. But his parents did commit suicide, but it was in 1989.
Yeah.
So there are elements of, shall we say, a transposed reality into a fictional setting. But obviously, this is a very stylized motion picture.
Yes.
And from what I understand, and you tell me if I'm wrong, it's so kind of hard to even know exactly what's happening at the end. It seems like they're just taking something, and I, for one, at the moment watching it, I said, no, it's a wedding, not a suicide, right? And I kept saying that to myself until I
It's like
couldn't.
Romeo and Juliet, just, yeah.
Like Romeo and Juliet, yeah, Polish style. I
This
guess.
style.
sorry. But two things before we leave.
Yeah.
Okay, so two things. One is that you mentioned that you might want to just give us a gift before we leave the stage of a little song performance, and I would love that. And just to tell you that when you said Lauren Bacall, it just touched off something in my head that I want to share, and that is that when Howard Hawks discovered Lauren Bacall, because he saw her photograph on a magazine and he brought her out to Hollywood, what he ultimately said about her was, "Now there's a woman the camera likes." That was his line about Lauren Bacall. And in watching you in the clips and then in Cold Water, oh boy, are you a woman that the camera loves.
Thank you.
But that's visual. And before we leave tonight, if you would like give us a moment of something that we could take with us, we would be very grateful.
Okay. You think about the song, some small song?
Well, something a cappella, obviously.
Okay, a cappella. I think because you are from Krynica, it's incredible situation that I will sing something from Krynica. Short, good. Good. Podobno mnie mama miała, podobno mnie wychowała, w nocy wstała, jeść mi dała, do rania mnie kołysała. Mój Janicku, nie bij ze mnie, w kołyseczce kołysy mnie, bo mnie mama nie bijała, w kołyseczce kołysała, bo mnie mama nie bijała, w kołyseczce kołysała. Hej!
Wow. Dziękuję.
Dziękuję bardzo.